Hello, greetings. First time touching the discipline and the activities of politics in Jamaica. Politics time. And I'm gonna have a few things to share with you tonight about politics in Jamaica. Yes, greetings. Welcome again. Another metamorphosis. First time I'm on delving into the realm of politics on this island of Jamaica. And I'm actually forced to make utterances because the times that we're living in now are getting sharper and the poverty is being declared as being near closure. So there are a lot of images being presented, a lot of statements being made now as the two tribes struggle to be in control of the resources of this island. It's a struggle for the control of the resources of the island. It's not a struggle for the distribution and the alleviation of certain distress in the society because of the power. It's about power. So before I speak about the politics in Jamaica now, give you a little background on the Island Block as it relates to politics. Jamaican politics, I know from experience, from as far back as 1980. I would say that's when my experience in Jamaican politics began, in 1980. I was on this island in 1980 when 1 month after Iman come into this place, in the February of 1980, the then Prime Minister of Jamaica, Michael Manley, he declared that there will be general elections. This is in February. Manley declared elections to be held in the October of 1980. So from February to October, from the second month to the 10th month, Jamaica became a battleground. Jamaica became a war zone. Jamaica was engaged in a civil war in the months actively while I was here. 1980, from February to October, both armies armed themselves to the teeth. But before my experience on the Jamaican island, this war of those 7 months didn't start in 1980 because the entire 1970s had its own volume of violence and war. I was fortunately, in retrospect, not living on Jamaica Island during the 1970s. So I might have no personal affinity to any of the tribes, neither PNP socialists nor JLP labor rights. During the 1970s, when the socialism was on the rise and capitalism was in retreat, Jamaica undergone a whole heap of disturbance with outside forces intervening. While that decade was passing in Jamaica, Iman was in the black struggle in America. And the struggle I knew in the 70s was black man struggle. UAP Newton, the Panthers, Eldridge Cleaver, Martin Luther King. Iman touchdown in America 3 days after Martin Luther King was assassinated, until right into the belly of the consciousness of the racial struggle. So my perception of Jamaica's politics really started when I come in here and was able to experience the Civil War. I realized that what Rastafari was talking about from the 70s and 60s was true. Was that the two parties were really one family. And two founding members of the political institutions in Jamaica, the Manley and the Bustamante, that they are family. Blood thicker than water. And on that basis, the ancient Rastaman saw it non-progressive to attach themselves to any one of the parties because they were both the same, one family. And we're wondering if much has changed from that time to this time, other than the family has expanded and has brought in other people of different views and different colors have come into it, but it is still one family. Now, the issue today, people asking, is that it's time, people putting it forward now that it's time to vote. And it has become an important part now of the whole democratic parliamentary system, that the vote is the most important thing. The vote defines who goes into the power, who sits into the chair. And Jamaica now is on the edge of another general election, scheduled to be called in 3 months from this moment, June, July, August. And the elections we here are scheduled to be called by September. So the next 3 months here are going to be very disruptive and stressful. It has begun already. Because the both tribes and their leadership are now posturing to really attack each other in ways that will extend beyond just court systems, because the people in the street don't think it's so simple. They're not into the logistics, they're into the practical doing. So the point I want to deal with now. Why should one vote? The general feeling I am picking up on this island after 4 decades. I've experienced both parties in power over the last 40 years. The end of the Michael Manley regime in 1980, the deliverance of the JLP by October 1980, that was the cry, deliverance. I've seen the PNP return to power with Michael Manley, again changing his garments, no longer wearing a cariba, returning jacket and tie to tell the whole of Jamaica that there's no such thing as a socialist program anymore. It does not exist, and that our programs are run by capital. And that the only way forward economically for Jamaica is capitalism, which was the ideology of the JLP. So both sections of the government are united in the economic philosophy of capitalism. And capitalism is an economic system that functions at its best when there is a slave population. If not slave, a great unemployed population. That the labor market will not cost the producers too much. So in other words, cheap labor. And we're experiencing cheap labor here to the highest level. We're increasing minimum wage in the same amount that they take to buy a bread and a condensed milk and 2 cigarettes. So people in Jamaica now are being told that they must make a choice. But traditionally, elections are defined by who the people decide to vote out. Because Jamaican people hardly ever vote any party in. They tend to vote the party that is already in to vote them out. So oftentimes there's no preparation or real notice of intention by the opposition. They are just opposing to get into the driver's seat. And we have seen it over the 40 years that once the opposing side get into the driver's seat, who was driving become the opposers, opponents, and they have all the answers now. So the opponents tend to always have the answers. So the issue then I want to bring up before we go into this election talk, and this is just part one. What is the value of the election system? What is the purpose? And how does it really benefit people to vote? And why should one vote after 40, 50 years? And the cry remains the same. Road, water, land. Road, water, light, and the land. That's what the people have been crying for from 1838. Another independent, politically independent nation. These things have not been satisfied yet by neither of the parties. So perhaps it's time not to look so much at the problem of the parties, but the structure now that the parties operate out of. Structure that has been left by the British, called the Westminster. It's a model of governance. Yeah. Structured a certain way. And I'm wondering if the problem in our leadership is not just based upon the individuals who become corrupted or crooked, but upon the system in which these individuals enter. Because I doubt that these individuals enter the system as crooked men. I doubt that they enter the system as thieves. But once they enter that parliamentary Westminster model, they have no choice because it was established by thieves. The British, their framework, and their mission was to suck and extract the resources of the country. Not to put it back into the country, but to take it to England. That tradition has not changed. So we have changed the leadership in terms of the looks and the language, but the principle and the operation have been taken over by the Jamaican browns and blacks and those who seek to control the power. So why vote? If it matters not who's in the power. Something then more fundamental need to be changed. It can't be just about voting out and voting in. Something else fundamental need to be addressed. And I'm saying that fundamental thing is a structure that we inherited in the British colonial structure called the Parliament. An island of this size should not require 63 members of Parliament, 63 members for one small island. Greater division, less unity. So the idea of unity in the island becomes unachievable based upon how they have structured the Parliament and divide up and give each person a little fiefdom to control. So politics doesn't become a discipline now for nation building in Jamaica. It's an area where individuals now go into it poor and come out rich. And that the resources of the island are not returned to the welfare of the people, but is returned to the families of those now who become politicians. See, the Traore revolution is showing that the resources of the country could be better used. All of those tourist dollars and the tourist earnings, why is that money spent now on roads, on hospitals? Those are the resources of the country. And if the tourist is the biggest revenue earner, then that should be the biggest spender on the national needs. So the politicians are not in a position or they have a desire to transform the nature of how the plantation run. Their position is to hold their power. So as the population begins to cry out now that both of them doing good, what is the solution? It's politics time again. And the people are being asked to vote. Two-party system, again established by the British. In that two-party system, there's no space for a third party. The American system is not much different. Republican, two major parties often try the third party, it rise up and it fall down. No different here in Jamaica. There are groups of individuals and small groups of political, aspirants who speak about a third party in Jamaica. It has been tried several times. Most recent one is just really against during the pandemic. And that has faded away. Because the structure doesn't make space for a third force in the parliament. It's an either or either. And the illusion we're under is that these groups are in opposition because they call one side the government and they call one side the opposition. It's a scam talk. None of those groups are in opposition to each other. Let us get that clear. Neither those who are proponents, who are the government, or those who are opponents, the opposition, they are not in opposition to each other because it's collectively they are the government. So if you want to change the government, it doesn't matter then if you change the opposition or the proposition. We have to change the entire structure in which these men gather and collect the resources. Ministries have been established and all the ministries are being sucked out. That's where the robbery and the $1 trillion robbery takes place, out of the ministries. That is where they say the food there. And there's nobody to investigate those ministries. Because the penal and the court system, all things are tied up under the same colonial parliamentary penal system. Both groups are creating a deception about final court, whether it's the Queen Council, Privy Council, or whether it's going to be the Caribbean Court of Justice, and making it seem that those two places are much different in terms of what side, each of them taking one side or the other. Both of them are still under the whole notion of the Commonwealth. They're still operating with Jamaica being a member of the Commonwealth, which means still under the Queen, even with the talk of Republic. There's a scam going on now to capture the people's mind to have them to vote. The Labour Party in power now have been going around and canvassing and doing the things that they need to do to stay in power. They have the money, they have the financing to advertise. So this referendum that they propose for the Republic, it's a non-starter. If you can't explain what you're going to do to lands that you're going to remove the crown, take away from the crown, what you're going to do with those lands? If we no longer have crown lands and no longer have the king as the head, who will now become owners of the kings and the crown land? These are things that don't want to be discussed because the Republic is more than just a title. Will we have garrisons in the Republic? So people are being distracted with political promises, yet the fundamentals of road, water, light, and shelter are not addressed. Health system, education system, all on the low. And we have the experience of seeing that these people in charge of the country give themselves a 300% increase, unashamedly. So, why should one vote? And if you voted, who you voting for? And if you don't vote, who are you not voting for? Because ultimately, whether you vote or you don't vote, one of those groups are going to get more than the other in the whole electoral rhythm and counting. And if the loser accept the loss, the system goes on. If the loser claim foul, there will be a challenge and the country will remain in a state of flux. What is the solution? We need a new perspective of governance. We have to remove that model of tribalism that the PNP and the JLP have created and think of Jamaica under a new political structure where we don't need 63 people in a parliament anymore. We begin by putting power now in certain regions. We have 4 regions in Jamaica. Let us give these regions political autonomy. And the key word here now is to decentralize the government system. Decentralization of the government system is key if we want to liberate resources in this country. Decentralization means everything that is defined in terms of governance no longer comes from one central place, which is Kingston and St. Andrew. Decentralization means giving political autonomy to the Western region, to the South Central region, and to the Northeast, where these regions will be guided by a type of governorship, where there's a governance in each confederation. Issues are not solved all the way in Kingston, issues are solved within the confederation. We need a new structure visually of governance, reconstruct the island politically, that each confederation will have an international airport, an international stadium, can conduct government business, and break the tribalism of PNP versus JLP and move towards regional development, regional competitions. Schoolboy football could be run along regional lines. National teams can be built through confederations. We need a new approach to structural governance. It's not necessarily about personality yet. And it shows that we are at this point unable to unite even the best brains of both parties. Whenever I mention coalition, everybody's turn up their face because there's some implicit statement meaning that there's no way the PNP and the JLP could operate as a national government. Why do we have to have a tribal English-style parliamentary system? We should be making space for other voices, that the other parties that we call minor will now have an input into the national government. They have to move totally away from what has been established from 1655 and look into the 21st, 22nd century. Look at the revolution taking place in Burkina Faso. And we must begin to see what we can extract from those experiences into our political life here and bring an end to that PNP, JLP tribalism. And we begin to talk about regional strength. So the politics thing in Jamaica, people now are getting excited because the very politicians that we have now are all tainted. And it's all about manipulating agencies and court systems, and there's a battle now that it has nothing to do with the wide population and services and goods. Men trying to remain in power. So should I and I vote? But before anybody can vote, you have to be enumerated. And if you're not enumerated, you're not in a position to vote. And they say if you don't vote, you have to accept the consequences of those who voted and who win. So be it. But the history here on this island is that each election, less and less people participate in the voting. So they have to find a way to get that majority who are not participating to begin to think politically, not JLP, PNP, but national, regional. Yeah, how do we get the regions that are area like St. Mary and Portland would no longer be depending on town to fix the roads in the junction? The roads in St. Thomas would have finished years ago if that region had autonomy and resources. Resources can come to these regions through taxes. Then people will really see the results of their taxes. If you pay a tax in the Northeast region, it goes to fixing the roads in the Northeast. People begin to see where the money going and can demand from representatives right near the region. So we'll have 4 governors in the country, 1 for each confederation. They will only need 63 people. We need a central government. We need an executive government. We need an executive government, president, and those type of people to deal with international affairs and the defense on the island. But each confederation should have its own leadership. Health, education, those things become stable. So it doesn't matter when the party change. The infrastructure was built into each confederation, and we move backwards. So it doesn't matter who becomes the executive government, they can't change the policies in the confederation to the extent that you stop projects and rename them and all that type of rubbish. So This is just my kind of initial outputs as it relates to politics in Jamaica. And in 3 months, the people are asked to go to the polls. Obviously, we are the ruling part of the government is unwilling to define. As a matter of fact, both of them agree not to define when it's an election day. Both of them have agreed not to press for a fixed date. They both say it in opposition that the country should have a fixed date, which would give us some stability. But when they get into power, they don't do it. They benefit from the uncertainty of when the general elections will be called. So it becomes a personal thing in a prime minister's chest. Should never be. Should never be. The election day should be fixed and in the books. Shouldn't be a personal choice. So the thing become very emotional and objectivity steps aside, and those who are in power feel as if it's their personal property. Not realizing that they're supposed to be providing a service. So between now and the election, this present party now is promoting all the things that they've done before and all that they're doing now. The things that they're doing now, if they were being done from that time till this time, Jamaica would be far advanced. But the government can only do what they can do still. Because when we look at the airport and the wharf and see all those type of guns and things coming in, you make you realize that this is not a normal place in terms of security and safety. Some heavy weapons on this island. And I really hope that nothing will escalate to the point wherein the present government will think they need to cause some kind of state of emergency and take us into this military construct that the elections can be postponed or delayed. All of these things are possible. So we're watching out and the people paying attention, but we have to pay attention as well to the alternative. Yeah, we need a regional structured government, regional powers. We want to decentralize the system that we inherit from the British. Kingston and St. Andrews should no longer be the center of the entire political structure. Western Jamaica can be a republic by themselves. Western Jamaica can break off. So that's why we need some more autonomy regionally and the development of regional pride to break the back of this tribal PNP, JLP, this system. The Marcus Garvey People's Progressive Party issues that they will bring to the front and consciousness that they try to raise, I will only say to the brother them, getting into the parliament cannot be the answer. And no matter how you're black and conscious on the outside, once you enter that parliament, you become like one of them. And if you don't join them, you have to leave. So when they go in here with long hair or short hair and talking all the blackness and the Rastafari talk, when you get into there, you may start drinking rum too. Yes, and you have to join the club. The 63 of them. Yeah, you go in here 1, 2, you can't change the 63 of them. But if you remove all 63 and reform the governance structure, then you have a different way to run the country. Yes, the thing set up wrong. And too long now we're running with this parliamentary background house structural leadership. When you get into the background house, background cuss one another in there and the behavior is outrageous. And it's all over them hug up one another and then drink them rum and they go party. The king's house should be abolished. We don't hear neither of the parties speaking about the abolishment of the Governor General's office. We've abolished that office along with his custos that he have in every parish. All of these people are being financed. The Governor General is heavily financed and he doesn't pay taxes. What is the benefit to the Jamaican population, the workers who can't get more than $1,000 extra on their income? So a lot of things are topsy-turvy. And we don't want to just look on this thing and just talk about vote out and vote in. Because the both of them people don't declare, don't belong in, but some element of group have to be in control of the steering wheel. The state need to have people around the wheel. But we're saying the wheel must realize it can't run the whole island from a central position anymore. There's the power, political power, need to be redistributed. The same in the land need to be redistributed. Political power need to be redistributed. Northeast Jamaica, St. Thomas, straight to St. Mary, should have autonomy. St. Anne should be part of the Northeast Confederation. From Trelawney right round to Westmoreland, semi-autonomy. From St. Elizabeth, straight up to Clarendon, St. Catherine, autonomy. And we build the country regionally. And then we realize why the real revolution is. There's half an hour. In the comments from the politicians, in the comments from those who are in the politics, there are those who are saying Marky G is the man now. And Marky G must replace Dr. Andrew. The Prime Minister now has taken up the doctor title to everybody now in Jamaica now calling him the same doctor. I wonder if I must just continue or just easy and watch it. Because it's all about status. The Jamaican people are impressed with status. Doctors and professors and sir. And we love to call people uncle and chief and part of the Jamaican culture. So we say the contest is on. The PNP, which was a traditionally socialist, black, brown people party, now they have a man who the JLP is accusing of being a white man. This is a complete reversal. This is the same JLP that was led by Edward Seaga and it's a whole set of white people. They are now in a position where they can accuse the PNP of having a white man as a leader. But I think race, they're sneaking in the racial consciousness about the politics, but they don't want to bring it up. They don't want to bring it up. Because if you bring up race on Jamaica Island, the whole thing pop down. Because the racism is strong here in Jamaica, hidden behind what they call classism. But we won't go too far into that. I'm saying to all of them, think about this election thing. Think about the nature of the people who are trying to regain power. And let us challenge them with the structure that they're working in and demand that the structure be changed. Demand that both groups make a declaration that the Governor General and his office must be abolished. They need to abolish the office of the Governor General and chase out all of those custodes out of the parishes because the parishes already have members of parliament. No need no custodes. We don't need anybody providing a throne speech if we are going to be an independent nation. And ultimately, we need to know who is in control of the military. Is it the Jamaican elected officials that control the military, or is it the Governor General, an unelected official? Yes, metamorphosis in politics time. Because someone always abstain from politics, knowing that the tribes are divisive. And when the people are hungry, you give them chicken and beer. And they come out and take the t-shirts from both colors because they are hungry. And the population remains that kind of way, hungry and uneducated. So we become victim to politics of Billy Wanga got politics. We have to transform that, so we need to get more youths in the universities across the island and the colleges to begin to get more conscious of the nature of the governance that we serve and the time to change the structure. We have changed the two parties in and out, regular people in and out, churchman, businessman, everybody going in there and come out. Same result. So it can't be all the while the people them. It can't be said them born thief. And as they're going, something else is fundamentally wrong. And I'm saying it's a structure. Structure that nobody wants to rock because they realize once they get into that, they are quote unquote safe. So if the PNP comes to power, there is no new source of income, no new industry, nothing different to create any new revenue. JLP remains in power, still no new source of income or revenue. Both of the groups are unable to give the island an industry that will break poverty. And Rastaman have been knocking on the door, suggesting long time that the cannabis sativa industry is the key. And I'm going to be more specific. The hemp industry is what will break the back of poverty in an island like Jamaica. Yeah, we must be advancing the notion of a hemp revolution. And both of these groups must think about that. We need a hemp revolution to change the economic relations in a place like Jamaica. It can't be just worker, owner, resort, servants, manufacturers are out of the hands of Africans here. So on black man them now and people in the politics realize that we need to hear from them. What is the industry they're going to put forward to change the economic landscape? Need a new industry. And to make it